All right, welcome to bootleg how to do SDB jacket. I already on one sleeve. It looks freaking sweet. Quick, nice and profesh on the back here. Everything's lined up. That's 2 inches, quarter inch between the gap, quarter inch here. Them's the rules, straight out of the manual on that one. Not just sewn through the liner, but the liner was actually removed when I sewed it, which actually makes it easier. So I do recommend doing that. Anybody that's got basic sewing experience and like mostly knows what they're doing with a sewing machine, no problem doing this. It's a lot easier than I thought it was gonna be. First up, I'm gonna be working with this sleeve now. It's gonna be doing a lot of seam ripping. First thing I'll have to do is rip out all of the seams for the striping that's already on there. I'm also going to rip out, you can see that it's kind of folded in here. The people that I had this do last did not do a great job, and they did just sew straight through the liner. So there's some stuff that I gotta fix there, but it'll be the same for you whether or not it was sewn through the liner. And then ripping out the stitching down here. I probably won't rip out all of it. I'm just gonna do a section about this big. Also gonna have to rip out the shield. I'm also going to seam rip on the inside. We're going to seam rip this where the liner connects to the main part of the jacket. The trick that I was like baffled by for so long, was so intimidating, is I was like, they've got this super fancy stitch here. That must be how they sewed the jacket back together with the liner. Like, I don't know how to do that. I'm not gonna be able to do that. You don't need to do that stitch. Everything that I did was straight stitch, because that's the easiest thing to do. That machine only does straight stitch. It might look fancy, it's not. It's literally just a straight stitch, and that's a free sewing machine I got from a friend. So no fancy sewing machines in this, no fancy stitches here. If you're just gonna have one machine, this is fine. I have both machines set up so that I don't have to switch thread. So this is the like gold for the striping, and that's black for everything else. But that's the only reason I have two machines. This totally would do everything. The trick, if you're curious and can figure it out once you know the trick, is that the inside of the jacket is stitched here from the outside. And so this will be ultimately what we rip, and then we'll just flip everything inside out through the hole that's created in the liner right here. And that will allow us to stitch this back up properly, flip it all back right side out, and then we'll just sew this up. And because it's in the inside of the jacket underneath the arm, nobody ever knows that there's a little trick to flipping everything inside out, which is usually the way sewing works. Unless you're really good at hand stitching, which I'm not. There's gonna be a little bit more seam ripping, but this is almost all the seam ripping, all the major stuff that we're gonna have to do. So removed the liner from the sleeve itself. I removed the hole where the striping was, and that's probably gonna have to get a little bit bigger, but I'm only gonna do that once I've measured everything into place. I removed the sleeve, or the shield as well. The nice ladies at the Academy, because I think they're the ones that did it, had a little chalk mark there for the vertical alignment. I'm definitely gonna leave that there, and I'm gonna use that at the end to get my shield lined up, but that'll be one of the last things I do. Yeah, obviously ripped out all of this. I'm saving one of these and then I'll use another one off of this and hopefully save a little bit of extra in case I mess up and have to use all of this and throw this one out. The next step here is I'm going to shove the liner back up inside, and then I'm going to measure out for laying out all of the striping at the right intervals. Again, 2 inches from the cuff to the first stripe, and then a 1/4 inch between each stripe, and then between the last stripe and the shield, going up the sleeve. I'm a cheapskate in weird ways, and so I don't have chalk. I need to buy some. I haven't. I always think, well, I haven't needed it yet, so why should I get some now? So I'm gonna just be marking it out with the double-sided basting tape to the best of my ability, and it doesn't need to be perfect, and also we'll get a little bit more exact when I'm using the sewing machine to actually lay it down, and I'll be checking with the ruler then as well. So one thing I'm noticing is that I'm gonna have to seam rip this hole just a little bit bigger on the sleeve where the striping is gonna wrap into that. It's just a little bit too low, and so I'm just gonna take it up a little bit higher. This is a really satisfying and a really easy part. So this was intimidating to me, was ripping up this like nice jacket. Actually ends up being super easy. So yeah, no worries there. I'm just gonna rip it up a little bit further. Obviously not trying to do any more than I actually have to. For the next part, I've got my sewing machine set up here. I would highly recommend a sewing machine that you can get a sleeve onto. If you can't, I would rip that whole seam all the way down to the end so that you can sew flat. For the striping here, just like I said, I'm going to line it up. I'm going to start, hopefully you can see this when I actually start sewing, but I'm going to start by bending back the seam allowance that was tucked inside the jacket, between the jacket and the liner, and I'm going to start sewing the striping in line with the edge of that. I'll show you a close-up of this before I start. So sewn all the way up to the edge of the jacket sleeve. So it's gonna sew up there, and then it'll get folded back like that and tucked away nicely. So yep, just make sure. I'm gonna get started. Alrighty, we got the stripes sewn on, that's the big thing. And then I'm gonna hand sew on the shield. I'm not gonna show very much of that because I'm bad at hand sewing. If you wanna go figure out how to do that well, then watch a YouTube video on hand sewing. Big thing, again, 1/4 inch, and then just making sure that it's lined up in the center. I'm gonna use that chalk line again to get my vertical, and just trying to keep it from being too wonky side to side. Got the shield sewn on. It doesn't look too great, but it looks good enough, and it'll get the job done for what it needs to be. The next step is going to be sewing up this section where everything comes together. For that, I'll be turning the jacket inside out, or the sleeve inside out. So it'll be something like this, and then it'll just be a straight stitch down the line here, gathering these two edges. From there, we'll move on to ripping the liner and then putting everything back together. I finished straight stitching the sleeve, and so now it looks like this sleeve, and it's flipped inside out. I've gone ahead and also taken the liberty of seam ripping the liner, where we're gonna flip the sleeve inside out through so that we can stitch everything back up nicely. At the end, this will just get pinched together and we'll sew it back just like that. And it won't look super pretty, but it doesn't need to. It's on the inside of the jacket. This next part is the hardest part that I had trouble with, conceptually getting everything to flip the way that it was supposed to. And the way that I figured out is the easiest, hopefully I get it on the first try here, is that I'm first going to roll back the cuff with the sleeve still inside out. So this will look like that. And this is what it should look like at the end anyway, just obviously with the inside on the outside. I'm gonna do the same thing with the cuff on the liner, and just make sure that that's folded in so the frayed edge is tucked in. And then I'm gonna pull that down as well. The final step before I flip everything through the hole is that I'm going to make sure that the seam on the liner is lined up with the seam on the sleeve. And this might take me a moment. But if these two aren't lined up, and especially if you have them crisscrossed, then you're gonna end up with either the liner or the sleeve looking really wonky. Now that I've got the sleeve lined up, you can see there that I had it twisted, so really glad that I double checked it there. I've got this lined up. This doesn't need to be perfectly lined up here. That's all gonna sort itself out when we flip everything inside out. I'm gonna grab one corner or one spot where the seams line up on the sleeve and the liner, and then I'm gonna pull all of this cuff and everything, still holding with my thumb that one spot through the hole in the liner. My thumb's still holding this spot right here. Conveniently, you can see that if I pull back the liner, just the edge of it, and keep this frayed edge, this edge actually ends up lining up like basically perfectly with the other frayed edge of the sleeve, which means that I no longer need to hold with my thumb, and I've created, slip that back on, I've created what I need to stitch, which is basically I'm going to flat stitch, or not flat stitch, I'm going to single stitch these two pieces together like this. So that's going to go all the way around. I'm first going to clip it here and then sew it all together. Again, keeping the seams in alignment so that the sleeve is, so that the liner is straight in the sleeve. So sewn around all the way. You can see a little bit better if I do this, what I just did. But basically married the two nice sides on the inside, nice sides in here, and bad sides out, all the way around. Now I'm gonna pull all of this through the sleeve, and we should have a almost completed SDB striping, and the liner should be pretty much all good now. Double check, my sleeve is straight, my liner's straight. Awesome. You can see I didn't do a super good job with making sure that that liner is attached. Like there's a little wrinkle there and it's different widths. I didn't do a super exact job. I'm not worried about it, it's on the inside. I might feel it a little bit, but I really don't think I will, and it shouldn't impact the way that the rest of the sleeve is, because the liner is so much looser and is so baggy compared to what's on the inside, or to the sleeve itself. So last step is to sew back up the seam that was ripped in the liner. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Magic moment. Flip it all inside out. Right side out. See how she turned out. Oh, beauty. So yeah, all set. There's the final product, nicely tucked in. Everything spaced out the way it's supposed to be, and you can't even see any of the stitching. Here's final product. Got a little bit of liner kind of hanging out the bottom there, but that's not too bad. Can't really see it. And striping looks good. Just do one for now. But there's final. Fits nicely. Definitely lots of cleaning and lint to do now to get it all right. And wrap this video up. If you got any questions, I will not answer them. Good luck.